What's up, Legion? Steve Zaff here. We are going over our review of AEW Dynasty 2025. Now, this was a longer than usual episode. We have an extra guest host. There's a lot of factors in this. So this is actually going to be a two-parter. I will have a little outro as well, but I just want to let everyone know that we are doing a two-part video on this.
Legionnaires of the Lariat! Welcome back to another episode of I Still Call It a Lariat. Today we are reviewing AEW's Dynasty 2025. With me as always, my tag team partner, Steve Zaff, and we have a very special guest today. We have with us today, Slim Burgundy. Slim, how's it going today, bud?
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to talk a little AEW, especially because I was there at the arena. So kind of giving you a first-hand perspective of what was happening in the arena.
Pleasure to have you. I'm glad you recovered from that marathon of a show.
It was, you know what? It was something. I'll give you my thoughts a little later on that. It was something.
I'm sure a few powders were taken as you went through that. And Steven, how's it going today, dude?
I'm loving life. I love talking wrestling. Showtime. It's nice to have you back. We missed you for an extended period of time.
I've always been here, Steven. I'm always here, watching, waiting,
anticipating.
All the things. Just
it's Raph. It's a little too Raph.
It's a little too Raph. I always like to kind of start these things off, guys. What'd you think of the show in general? Slim, what was your big takeaways? What'd you think?
So first things first, let's get this out the way. You know, when you go to an AEW show, you're going to get some amazing wrestling. Mm-hmm. I don't feel I'm stepping out of turn saying that. Was it perfect? Of course not. Was there a lot of stuff for them to tighten up and work on? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, did I have fun? And I had a blast. So for me, it was a fun show. If you asked me to give it I almost stole a certain other, writer / I guess podcaster / Twitter personality with a 5-star system, if you get what I'm saying. But
if you ask me past 5 stars at this point, we're in like
now past 5.
We're at like galaxies.
Oh, Meltzer. But if you ask me to give it a ranking from 1 to 10, I would put it at a very, very solid 8.5. It was, again, some stuff to work on, but it was a very good show.
Steven, what are your takeaways? What are you thinking?
So if I'm going on a 1 to 10 scale, like Mr. Burgundy just did, I will say I'm a little bit more critical. I'll go in the 7 range, 7 to 7.5. I think AEW does. I still think AEW does pay-per-views better than they do just about anything else. And if I'm looking at the show in a vacuum, I think that they did a great job. But also, wrestling's not a vacuum, so we have to kind of evaluate it. Part of how I evaluate their pay-per-views, though we haven't seen this show yet and hasn't come about, is a lot of times how they follow it up on Dynamite immediately following the pay-per-view. Because I always feel like that's where they miss the ball sometimes, is their follow-up on Dynamite is not always as great as the pay-per-view was.
Their long-term storytelling or their continuity is never AEW's strong point. It's throwing things together, getting you set up for the next big card so we can change and flip everything else on top of its head to get to the next card. I don't think there's any more fitting name in wrestling than Swerve Strickland, because for all of last year, he went back and forth between face and heel every single week, depending on whoever he was facing, and getting to that moment in time. So that's not what we're here for. We're here for the big spots, for the craziness.
Can I ask you both of you this really quickly? I'm curious your thoughts. Because the show's on a Wednesday compared to where, for instance, both WCW and WWF at the time had the benefit of 24 hours later, they're on with another show. And it's fresher in people's minds. It's a little, not that we're talking a massive difference, but do you think that 48 hours made a difference between when you're talking about a Wednesday show versus a next night on Monday kind of show?
I think it does, but also I think and if we were looking at it from purely a WWE point of view on this one, going from Sunday to Monday, and this, for all the things that we could say negative about Vince or WWE, one of their things is their stuff is so tight that they knew Monday what was going to happen because of what happened on Sunday. So like they went into Monday and like, yeah, they might tweak about this much, but realistically their plan was their plan and it was their plan.
At least during the attitude, I think what was it, maybe a decade ago, the word was that every show was being rewritten about 35 times by Vince.
That was the Attitude Era. That was literally every time he worked the show. Honestly, to counterpoint you, Steven, I don't think it matters at all. They have a schedule. It's the schedule you expect to kind of feed into from the AEW side of things. AEW's storylines have never been the tightest, and it has been a little bit more leaning on the workers or some of the other guys in the back. I don't think that the 48 hours is all that different. At this point in time, it's only an additional day than WWE with the PLEs being on Saturdays. So I really don't think it makes much of a difference, particularly with these cards being so long. I actually think it benefits them having it on Wednesday, because if you can't consume all of this on a late Sunday night, you at least have the opportunity to catch the second half, the last third of the match to be ready for Dynasty. I know I struggle to watch these whole things in one sitting when it comes to, because I'm always late because I turn it on after all the kids go to bed and whatnot. By the time I start, it's already 2 hours or an hour into the show. So by the time I get to the back third, I'm wiped, like the fans do. That's some of these things when we get into these matches. I think some of these matches that were solid matches hurt because the fans were just exhausted by the time we got to that. There's none of those real take a match off matches when it comes to AEW that the WWE does really well. Of they throw in just one of those, all right, bathroom break match. Good, you guys can go out and come back in, catch a breather. I don't think they did that in this card at all. I think each and every one of these matches were meant to have a spotlight on them, and I think that hurts when you get to other matches that could have a spotlight, but you're just exhausted by hour 2.5.
Ironically enough, from in the arena, everybody was fired up. The whole night, everybody was loud. Everybody was into it. But then again, I think that's also because you're talking about a truly hardcore wrestling fan base in Philadelphia. If you're talking a different city that doesn't have, if you're not talking a Chicago, a Philadelphia, a New York, a Boston, who am I missing that's another hardcore wrestling fan base?
Chicago. Did you say Chicago?
It's Chicago, yeah.
Anywhere in Canada?
Anywhere in Canada. Anywhere in Europe at this point.
Toronto, a Calgary. If you're not talking one of those kind of fan bases, then yes, I think you're right. I think it could definitely, become too much for them. But, and again, that's probably a part of the fact that you're talking about a Philadelphia fan base that is a hardcore wrestling fan base.
I think you did notice it on TV though, in certain areas where the fans didn't seem not that they didn't seem into it, but the energy level was lower.
There was definitely matches that they were a little again, and I'm not saying being in the crowd you saw it as much. Watching it on television, I was able to see that there were times where people were a little burnt out, honestly, and some of them were good matches. I'll give it the example I'll give is Toni Storm, Megan Bain got the crowd back, but in the beginning of the match, the crowd was tired. They weren't quite as into it
as it came across on TV, basically.
Yeah, how I heard stuff on TV, and it's not like it was an outdoor arena where things were, I'm losing some of the sound. So,
Cole Garcia is the one that I think hurt the most.
I was thinking Cole Garcia. There were a couple moments where that definitely did quiet down a little bit.
Yeah. And that's the one that I thought deserved more of the fan reaction. But after following the Bandito match and Jericho match and the Fletcher Briscoe match, the Toni Storm Megan Bain match, it was just one banger after another. Even Jericho stepped up. But we'll get into the match by match thing as we break this down. Steven, you had a question. Go for it.
Yes, Slim. I know it was in Philly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it at Temple?
Yeah, Leocore Center on the campus.
So that's the same place that Showtime, you and I went to see Bound for Glory years ago.
Yep.
They did a TNA Bound for Glory event there, which was awesome as well. That's a
Hogan
cool
versus Sting
arena.
with the side of Flair.
Hogan versus Sting with a side of Flair. That was how I sold the event to people to come.
Yeah,
and I only paid like.
I went with. He was saying that same thing. He was like, "Oh yeah, I was here at Bound for Glory." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, for like $30 tickets. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's great. We were
only about 20 years too late for seeing at least Hogan and Flair, but
it's fair. It was fair to Flair though.
Yeah, there was very little bumping in that one. That one was not their WCW days.
It was a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Before we get into the actual show, let me just ask one more time with this. I know have you seen at least a little bit of improvement in the past maybe 2-3 years compared, when you're looking at it, or maybe the overall of their product so far? As we've gotten along further, have you seen some improvement with the long-term storytelling? I feel like it's getting a little bit better. Still a ways to go, but I think it is showing improvement. At least that's how I'm kind of seeing it from watching it a week in, week out kind of perspective.
So I'll give it to you this way. Yes, there is improvement, and it's been very recently. I've seen a lot more improvement. To counterpoint it, though, yes, there is improvement. At the same time, for storytelling, they're not where they should be 5 years into this. So if that makes sense, they jumped on the storytelling aspect of things, like you said, about 2 years ago. So like 3 years in, so they're where they should be for working on their storytelling for 2 years. But the problem is they're a 5-year-old company. So they're still a little behind the 8 ball at that point.
Yeah, things just end over nowhere. Like the entire Elite storyline, it was storyline A, and then all of a sudden everyone just left just because the Death Riders showed up. And everyone ran away. There's constant changes from face to heel, good guy, bad guy, whatever you want to say, throughout the last year. I don't have the last couple of years of experience. I kind of came into AEW as we started this show. So I don't really have the last year to go on. They've improved, but there's a lot of work to. I will say there is one person particularly in AEW that stands out above the rest for me when it comes to storyline, performance, really has the full thing and never misses a beat, and it's Timeless Toni Storm.
We were actually talking about that before we started recording. I said that she is absolutely
the best. If you look
across all companies, men, women, she is number one. Like I would tell a new wrestler, watch what she is doing, because that is what you want to be able to do. Character work, in-ring work, mic work, the whole thing.
The whole package.
Steve is like, you judge it by like the greatness of the character by, wow, when I'm watching this, I believe it. Like I was telling you, I think there are times I have to remind myself, she's not 130 years old, movie star of that genre. I'm like, wait, no, shoot, she's only like 30.
This is false news. She is. It's one of those things where she's reborn every 30 years. So. She is the whole package. She stands out in my mind across everyone in AEW. She would stand out in WWE. I think that it hurt when she took time off with the entire package, the entire product. And if more people would lean into that kind of portion of this, they'd be fantastic. And then the other thing that we critique often when it comes to AEW is when they go too far in certain situation or moves and people just bounce out. When you get a cradle pile driver on the ring steps and someone's up 3 seconds later, you just lose it. It pulls you out of the product. And exactly what you were just saying with Toni Storm, like where she engrosses you into the story and like I buy everything she's saying. There's other moments like that I think has to be part and package of the storytelling element. When you're watching and you're like, no, that guy should be in traction right now and not back up doing a suicide dive off the top rope to the outside at this moment in time. You lose, you're like, oh yeah, this is This is that kind of
To be
wrestling.
fair, other companies do stuff like that too. I don't think
It's
that's an
rare.
AEW
Or-
specific.
If you're comparing, I don't think we mostly compare here WWE and their properties and TNA, and I don't think that they do that all that often.
TNA does that kind of stuff from what I've seen. I know, to be fair, I don't watch it regularly, but from I've seen them have people who do that. It reminds me of and John Cena is famous for taking a beating and then all of a sudden he's up, like it's nothing. I mean, Hulk Hogan taking a beating, he's up like it's nothing.
That the beating is different. Neither of those guys have ever hit some of the things that you see here.
Well,
and,
yeah.
And
could you imagine Hulk Hogan doing a suicide dive? Dear God.
Yeah.
Hogan did do a suicide dive. Didn't you hear? He'll tell you.
Oh, I'm sure he'll tell me. Yeah. I'm sure he'll tell me that he did. He dove from the top of the rafters and did a splash on somebody.
So I'll say this. I think to go along with the storytelling aspect of things and just how they build shows in general. And this isn't just an AEW thing, but it is a little bit more of an AEW centric criticism.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the talent on the show, or the producers on the show specifically, the agents, whoever is agenting the matches, I don't think they communicate as well as they should. Or if they are communicating as well as they should, there's not enough control of the match at that point, because there's no reason why, if there was a pile driver in match 4, that there should have been 3 pile drivers in match 5, so to speak. Or
the problem is, at least at AEW, I won't say other companies, but in AEW, there's like 3 moves they are very heavily loved to do: the DDT, the super kick, and the pile driver.
And here's my thing is,
and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing.
This is what I will say about their talent in this case. They're not chasing heat. They're chasing a holy shit chant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I kind of get that feeling.
And that's where the aspect of storytelling, where I actually heard this on Busted Open the other day, where if you go back and watch like the movie The Wrestler, and he's sitting in a VFW hall with a bunch of indie guys, and they're like, oh, we're going to work the knee. Oh, you can't work the knee. We're in the first match and we're working the knee. Like, that's an old school thing, is don't do this because it'll hurt down here. One of the
matches that I thought they did to kind of take that point was Garcia versus Cole, where they really worked the ankle angle of Adam Cole, like having the ankle injuries, the bad ankles. I love that aspect. I thought it was a refreshing thing to see that I'm going to attack a body part, because you don't need every match to be that crazy flying, or like it's okay to, and that's, again, I'm going to throw all companies this way. It's okay
to wrestle.
Vary. I won't say to just do a high flow, to vary your match types. Because I think WWE sometimes goes in the opposite direction. They're a little too formulaic with their matches sometimes too. Yeah, where it's a similar style over and over and over again.
I think
it's okay to vary a little bit.
Steve, to your point, I think that's a systemic issue across the whole industry. The move of the night is something that we talk about a lot. TNA is notorious for it too. I think that the producers not talking in WWE, it's most prevalent between the men and women, where you'll end up seeing a men's match and a women's match that have like the same kind of spot combos where those guys aren't talking. I think AEW, it typically stands out more, and I don't blame the producers, because we know the talent that they have in the producer areas. I don't know if the wrestlers are listening or if they're communicating enough from like what everybody else is doing, because you do end up seeing the same kind of spots, or it's like, I just saw this match 3 matches ago. Like, but I think this point is across the board, because you see it quite, and WWE is most notorious of it between the men and women's division, because the men's matches won't overlap, but the men's and women's matches, it's almost like they have the same matches, just mirroring for genders throughout the card.
Well, that's what I said. Like, to me, I think WWE does the opposite, like they're on the opposite end, but it's definitely an industry thing, where there's a lot of similarity between, and that's why I say vary your matches up a little bit. It's okay to have a little bit of variety with it. It's okay to have a couple of, we're going to work on this person's body part and do some of the grappling style for this match. And then, okay, maybe this one's a little more high flying. And then maybe this one's a little more catch as catch can, and mix it up a little bit. It's okay to do that. I don't know. Is it they're so worried about today's fan that they worry that today's fan can't handle a slower pace, that they need that, go, 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 go mindset?
No, I think it all depends on the company, right? Because WWE will go on the slower pace. AEW is all about that holy shit chant or trying to get the Dave Meltzer's 11 teen star rating. The TNA, honestly, we say we talk about it a lot. TNA, in my mind, almost has the best pure wrestling that there is out there. Where you go into that, you see very different matches. They make the taboo move of doing the move of the night. I remember there's been a few of them where every match has a cutter in it for some reason, just out of nowhere. It's like they almost like pull out of a hat, like, what's today's move? Oh, here you go, everyone use it. So like I think it varies, and it's almost they use it as an identity or who they are. Like, I need this pay-per-view to be grueling. I need nothing under 15 minutes. I need at least 4 or 5 matches that are 32 minutes long. We need to go for a 5-star match every match, or it's a failure. Whereas in WWE does the opposite, where it's like, all right, we only have room on this 6-card match for 2 matches of the night. Everybody else, pull it back. That was last year's USO problem when you had brother versus brother, where that match, we were all very disappointed at WrestleMania for that match. It was because it got cut down and didn't give it the air to breathe that it needed, because other matches got 45-minute entrances in that main event of that first night. So I think it's a little bit of kind of the identity of the company that we're talking about. And that's where it comes from, because you wear that as kind of a badge of honor. Not a ring of honor, but a badge of honor.
And you were talking about needing a little bit of time in between matches to catch a breather. I don't know if we were talking about before we were recording or as we were recording. Do you think that that's an advantage of WWE's ridiculously 30-minute long promo packages, whereas AEW, it's 90 seconds. All right, let's go to the next match.
I think it helps. They also add in those breather matches. I think, what was it when we had? One second. One of the last shows, was it Backlash? Elimination Chamber, where you had the Trish and Tiffany versus Nia Jax and Candice LeRae match after the first Chamber match.
That match was bad.
But like that was what that was meant for. The Royal Rumble, you had the DIY versus Motor City Machine Gun match, which was great, but I want another 10 minutes of that match. Those were the kind of matches that they kind of put in quick hit matches so you can get into it and get out of it, and you don't need to give your whole fandom to it. They're notorious for doing at least one of the night. When you're talking about a 5-match card, they keep that tight to begin with. But when you're talking about that, there's always one of those matches or 2 of those matches to give the fans. I call it like the bathroom break match.
The popcorn match.
Fair. It's not fair to the wrestlers. They're still wonderful workers, and a lot of them are good matches, but they're not at the high intensity that the other ones.
To me, that's kind of almost a disservice, though, to an extent. You're doing your wrestlers a disservice by not saying, go steal the show every single match. I honestly, and maybe this is because I've had a little time of working in the business, and I'm sure, Steve, you can speak to this from your years of wrestling, in-ring experience. But shouldn't you be, if you're a company, if you're the someone who's running a company, wouldn't you want to tell your guys, go fucking steal? I allowed to curse. I just realized.
Yes, we're good.
All right,
we're straight.
We're not monetized yet.
I know it's not.
We're not monetized yet. It's fine. And now we're never getting to be.
Your point is fair,
guys.
But that's the difference between producing a whole show and producing a collection of matches. And I think that's the juxtaposition of what you're saying. Where because every single match is supposed to be the match of the night. This isn't the Indies. This isn't and like I'm not trying to say the AEW is the Indies, but they have that kind of indie mentality. That's what they were born
Well, if it's
out
a
of.
pay-per-view, though, I agree if you're talking like a normal TV taping, because you need to have time for everything else. But if it's a pay-per-view, I would think with a payper-view, like on WrestleMania, I expect the wrestlers to go out and Bubba Ray Dudley has talked about this, or Bully Ray, whatever you want to refer to him as. He's talked about this where they would open up a card and all, and they would go say, "We're going to fucking have the match of the night, and fuck everybody else. Go beat us. Go show you could be better than us." So I think from the wrestler's perspective, they absolutely have that mindset of we're going to set the tone. And honestly, and just to kind of tie it back to AEW Dynasty again, honestly, I think that's what happened with Ospreay and Kenneth.
Kevin Knight.
Kevin Knight. Thank you.
So I absolutely agree.
The purpose of the first match, like the whole purpose of match one, is to try to steal the show and get the crowd hot and started. And so,
but I think you also see it. I think each match. If you're not saying each match, and again, Steve, you could speak to this better than I can. If you're not saying, if you take the mindset of, oh well, I'm on third. We're just going to go have a match. So you should be trying to steal every single time.
I do agree with you. In a pay-per-view aspect, I do agree with you.
Yes, in a pay-per-view. I'm not talking about a TV tape.
Now, here's the other aspect of this, though. As a promoter, I should know that not every match needs to steal the show. In fact, if I try to get everyone to steal the show, so some of that might be a situation of me cutting your time down.
Mm-hmm.
So where a lot of, again, if I go through the times of these matches, there's really not a short match. The shortest match on this entire card is 11 minutes flat.
Okay.
And that's the match. That's not curtain to curtain. That's just the match is 11 minutes flat.
Now, to be fair, their entrances were pretty quick. It wasn't like, even with that, you're not talking a super long time.
No, but an 11-minute match is still a relatively long match. So what I would have said is, you're right. Will Ospreay, Kevin Knight does need to go out and tear the house down. And you know what, Death Riders? Maybe you and Rated FTR have the possibility to tear the house down, but you need to do it in 8 minutes.
Steve, I actually don't think the times are the problem in this situation, but the shortest match is 11 minutes with 10 matches on the main card. That is so many matches.
Well, that's why I said, like I was saying, and doing the other podcast, doing the VOC Nation. Sorry, I'm throwing a shout out in there, and I know I should.
Welcome to.
But do it in the room on VOC Nation on Tuesday night, 7:30. We do it live, and also make sure you guys are listening. Then, as soon as these guys' podcast comes out, you better be listening as well, because I, for one, still call it a Lariat. I'm just saying.
We all do.
Lariat.
But I now, of course, we were talking about, of course, now my don't get old, gentlemen. Don't get old. This is what happens. You start getting old.
I think we're all already there.
Yeah. Your beard is the least gray, man.
I see some right about here.
Yeah, see some. It's just old.
What was I saying now? Of course, I lost my thought.
The last thing I said was 10 matches.
Yes. I don't understand, and this is what I was saying earlier on the other podcast. Why in the hell are you having quarterfinal Owen Cup matches on? That is absolutely, I'm going to hammer AEW. And all in all, remember I said 8.5. This is why I didn't go higher. Because as good, the matches were fine. They did not need to be on this card, or they should have been your pre-show match.
Pre-show.
And even then, I shouldn't.
I was going to say, Showtime and I said that there were 2 matches on this card that absolutely didn't need to be on the card, and I'm not saying they weren't good matches. So I think Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe didn't need to be on this card.
Yeah.
And no, so here's my thing is, I think Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe is an amazing match. I think every time they wrestle, they are awesome. I love both of those guys. I enjoyed it. I could have had this match on Dynamite.
Could
The
have
other one is
Dynamite.
actually Jericho and Bandito. Just because it's the Ring of Honor title, I understand how big they were trying to make this match, but it's the Ring of Honor title. I could have had both those
Save that
matches
for a Ring of Honor show.
Now, if you have Ospreay on there and Kevin Knight as to open the show as the as a quarter match for the Owen, and then you have Mercedes and Julia also as an Owen quarter, and you just have one from each bracket, I'm okay with that. Like,
But,
you do one
me,
and one.
I feel like doing a quarter final match doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Unless you're doing the entire tournament in one night, like kind of like a King in the Ring. Unless you're doing something like
which
that.
they don't even do that anymore.
No. But unless you're doing something like that, semi, final, boom. Or just the final. Like, you can get away with a semi, and then maybe you save the final for Dynamite. I could have been like, okay, I guess I could see that. But quarterfinal, no. I'm sorry. That was a mistake.
I think what they were trying to do, and I understand that they had qualifiers for it, but like, I think they were trying to say this was the real kickoff to the tournament. So that's the only reason why I'd be okay with one of each of those matches. But boys,
I think that what a transition. It's 30 minutes into this one and we haven't started.
Yeah, sorry. So that's why I was going to say I was going to try to pull us back a little bit.
since we're talking about it, let's get into Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight. This one, I thought this was a solid match. It was a great way to kick off the show at a high tempo. This is Kevin Knight's introduction or his debut pay-per-view match, which is really cool for him. I think he looked really strong in this, while Ospreay did the Ospreay thing. But Slim, as our guest, let me kick it to you. What did you think about this match? Break it down for us.
So I have to say, from being there, that was one thing I was so excited to see Will Ospreay live. Like, I right now, from a truly just a wrestling standpoint, like, I like his character, but he's not at the level of Toni Storm. But from a wrestling standpoint, I think he's the best right now in the entire world from a wrestling standpoint. You know what he's going to do in the ring, with the match you're going to see, the story you're going to see told in the ring is going to be awesome. And not only, here's one of the things I think Ospreay is so cool in my book, is not only did Ospreay shine, but he made Kenny shine too.
Kevin Knight.
Sorry, I'm gonna get it. Like you said, it's an introduction, so I'm still trying to. He made Kevin Knight look like $1 million. For someone, I almost felt like, oh yeah, I've seen him 1 million times. He's a great wrestler, even though it's my first time seeing Kevin Knight. That's the aspect of Will Ospreay's ability that I think is very underrated, is his ability to make his opponent, for him to shine, but also make his opponent look like $1 million.
Well, we've been in love with Will Ospreay for about a year now.
Since he told us to shut up and enjoy the show.
See, in the background there is my wedding pictures, my wife and I. So I'm a straight man, but I love that guy. Like, I want to give him a big hug, man hug. But I want to give him a big hug.
So our opening introduction, our real introduction to Will Ospreay was Revolution last year, or at least Showtime's was. And right. I was like, just so you guys know, going into that show, because it was him and Takeshita, I was like, guys, I'm telling you, this match is going to steal the show. Like,
it was great.
And Mike looked at me and goes, I wasn't sure about him. And then he told me to shut up and just enjoy the ride. And I decided to shut up and enjoy the ride. And I feel like that's where we're at with Ospreay all the time, is we're kind of in a shut up and enjoy the ride stage. I pray he doesn't kill himself at some point.
Yeah,
like, he doesn't always
that was our whole narrative in the very beginning, and I think that we're off that narrative at this point in time. He hasn't been hurt yet. He's like still going. I mean, everyone gets hurt, right? But
there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. And I think that's the big thing, with him, is you're going to have those bumps and bruises, which, but I fear like he's going to get injured, like actual, like.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. I think we need to keep screwdrivers out of Will Ospreay's hands at all times now. I don't know if you guys recall the steel cage match, but he was standing on top of the cage and just hucked that screwdriver down, and you saw it hit the mat and then bounce into somewhere. So there's a kid in the crowd with one eye now.
But a dope souvenir too.
Yeah, like
as he's walking out with
yeah, like it's cool because Will Ospreay wrote "bruv" on there for him.
Jimmy, why do you have something sticking out of your eye? No, Miss Teacher, don't touch it.
Yeah, I need
Signed
that.
by Will Ospreay.
Steven, what do you think about this match?
I'm okay. I had 2 of them.
About this match, I thought this match was. I thought this match was amazing. I thought this was, it's a Will Ospreay match. It's exactly what it was, and like I'm not saying that as a bad thing. Sometimes we say it's so and so's match as a bad thing. Will Ospreay, almost the worst aspect of him is how good he is, because we've said on the show. Yeah, what we've said on the show though, if he doesn't have a perfect match, sometimes we're like, oh man, like he set the bar too high for himself.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
he's graded on a curve, 100%. But I will say this was a great way to start the show off. I think Will did hit the thing he does best. I think his best quality is making other people look like they're, I don't want to say as good as he is. Like no one, there's some people who look that good, but no one really looks. Like Kevin Knight didn't look as good as Will Ospreay in this, but he really elevated him, made him look strong in this match. Now Kevin Knight coming out of this match can go fight anyone. You'd be like, all right, you know what? I could see Kevin Knight getting one over on Ricochet. I could see Kevin Knight going out and getting an upset over so-and-so and kind of establishing him as a star, because not beating Will Ospreay isn't a dig at you, but keeping up with him is definitely a nod in the right direction for the start of your career. I could see Kevin Knight and Speedball Mike Bailey going at it and having a great match now that it's already been established with Will Ospreay as the dude. Problem is when you go and wrestle some of these other guys, it doesn't always hold up because Will Ospreay, he works.
Yes.
Did they on the TV side of things? Did they say make reference to Kevin Knight's family being there?
I don't recall. I don't think
because we're pretty sure his family was there because he got a loud cheering section a little in front of us.
I mean, they might have. I don't recall commentary saying it, but I give.
It looked like after the match he went over to give some people a hug and all. So
AEW commentary team is my biggest indictment in the wrestling industry. Tony Schiavone is the worst.
Commentary team to me is the worst.
Tony Schiavone is the worst ever.
I don't know. He used to be terrible. Tony Schiavone, WCW Tony Schiavone was god awful.
AEW Tony Schiavone isn't much better, although Taz is gold. Anymore,
so I think, yes, I agree with that. Taz is old.
Taz and Nigel McGuinness are gold. My favorite Taz line from the night was, "I'm raging like hemorrhoids." That was a good one.
Did you enjoy Excalibur almost getting completely taken out at one point?
Actually, yes.
It kind of had like here comes Mick Foley flying at the table kind of feel. But yeah, I was just curious if it showed his family.
I don't think so. I think they only because they did the stuff with Bandito's family later.
Mm-hmm. Which I can't wait to get to that match because that's a whole nother thing I got to riff about on that one.
You got about 2 hours before we get there, I think.
Yeah, because we have 7 matches before that.
Yeah. So
basically just like an AEW card. We're going
exactly.
Yep.
So the next one is the tag team match for the AEW World Tag Team Champions. We had the Hurt Syndicate versus the Learning Tree. And so, Steven, I'm going to kick it to you this time. What's your takeaway from this one?
So I love the Hurt Syndicate. I like Bobby Lashley. I like Shelton Benjamin. They are ageless. I like MVP. This is something we say on a weekly basis. MVP and the Hurt Syndicate, when they are doing their segments, the adults are in the room. They are professionals. Every aspect of what they do. As the kids say, there are levels to this, and they are on a different level than a lot of the people are. MVP specifically, and a prime example of this was the weeks leading into this, MVP having words with Big Bill though that wasn't a fair promo contest. That was that was a D1 college athlete playing a kid in the 7th grade.
Though size-wise, you wouldn't believe that Big Bill was in 7th grade.
No, but if you heard him, he sounded like he had a 3rd grade reading level. And like MVP just took every opportunity to tear them apart. Like they were like, if you're gonna come out here and do this,
do it right.
You need to do this, and I'm here. And it's almost my knock for guys like Don Callis, unfortunately, where I was like, I don't know if I don't like Don Callis or if he's not good or what it is. And then MVP got there, and you realize like there are so many levels above for managers and promos and things like that, and they do so well. I thought the match itself was good. I like that it was only 11 minutes. I actually think because it was the Hurt Syndicate, this match actually even could have been shorter, and it wouldn't have hurt the match, no pun intended, because it's Shelton.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. But I think Shelton and Bobby still look like they did 20 years ago. They wrestle like they did 20 years ago. Shelton might actually look like he's in better shape now than he did then.
Slim, tell me about what do you think about the nefarious acts of one MJF at the end of this match?
So where I was at is right behind, like I was basically up a little bit of where the backstage. So I was kind of close to backstage enough to where we could see him kind of sneak in. And we were like, uh-oh, that nefarious MJF is up to some no good. You know, I even gave him the, ooh, ooh.
It's, you jerk.
Exactly. Honestly, though, I like that it had me guessing because of the way they did everything. Was he going to try to cost the title, the champs, the match? Was he going to cost the challengers? Was he going to ultimately have a crew with him that was going to come out and interfere and get the match? Like there was a lot of elements to it, which I thought they did nicely. But that goes, I think, back in a lot of ways to just how good and professional Benjamin, MVP, and Lashley are, to where they could take that and make it look so good.
And MJF, I think putting those four together, that's again, the adults are in the room.
Maybe not necessarily with MJF as far as that, just because he's such an a-hole, but
but he's still a professional. Like that's kind of where I'm at with it.
He is. And I thought too, I'll say with real quickly, just to say, Brian, Keith, and Big Bill look fine. I thought they look solid. You're going to get a solid match with those guys. Are they world beaters? Are they anything special? No, they're not. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful.
No, it's the learning tree. We know what we got here.
Yep, Jericho Vortex.
the Jericho Vortex.
But I think it was a solid match.
Do we think this leads to an actual union between the Hurt Syndicate and MJF, or is this?
I think the opposite's going to happen. I think MJF is going to do what MJF does best: snake in the grass. Watch for that attack. He's the he's the pterodactyl in the newer Jurassic Park movies. MVP's like giving him the hand signals. He's coming along, but watch out. He's going to be ready to snatch you up before if you turn your back on him.
Now, I had said this one too, and I'm going to throw it to you guys this way. What if MVP does actually turn on the other members of the Hurt Syndicate and goes with MJF? And this is how I'm going to give it to you guys. I think MJF and MVP together, it ranks in there as Punk and Heyman, Roman and Heyman, like two guys who can both talk, and neither one of them actually needs the other one. But when you put them together, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't know I needed this, but I need this now.
See, now you just hit me with that, and now I need you, Michael, please take it, because I need a few seconds showtime.
I'm not ready for it, and now that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. We talk about this quite a bit, Steven. Like a lot of times when we change some things, I'm not ready for this to end. The Hurt Syndicate are still entirely too new in AEW. They have they're in the back burner on warm on that heat plate right now. Just with these tag team titles, I think you're gonna have to see Bobby Lashley make a run for the title before you see that turn. But that could be the end of the storyline. I could see MJF joining, Lashley getting that title somehow, and then that's where the swerve, not this one, but the swerve happens.
Not this swerve. The
Yeah.
the
And
storyline swerve.
Your point is right. I love where your head's at. That's a 2027 storyline for me. Maybe late 2020. A 2026 storyline for me. Maybe late 2025. But like, we have to establish these guys in the AEW universe before we start going with that. But knowing AEW, it's already happened. Like, it happened backstage about 5 minutes ago. And so
Ace just said, "Watch your mouth," and all with that.
Apparently, was that fine, Ace? Yeah, whatever you say, whatever you say.
Listen, we understand.
That's my response to that, Steve. I'm not ready for that to happen. They're not established enough yet in this place.
Here comes back to what I was saying earlier. Are they starting to plant some seeds? Are they starting again that long-term storytelling, which we said they're getting better at? Still a long way to go. But do you see them doing those little things now? So that way, in a year from now, a year and a half from now, maybe even, we're ready for it. It's like they kind of got us thinking about it.
Yes, but also I'll give it to you this way: is it them planting the seeds, or very much I'll throw it back to a WWE style? Is MVP Paul Heymaning this? Paul Heyman has a lot of creative control in the back. He controls a lot of stuff that Roman and Punk does, and sits there and says, hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to start doing it this way to plant seeds for this. So it's MVP saying, this is how we should do this. And
I would be shocked if he doesn't have that clout.
That's what I'm saying. And then Tony just went, okay.
I don't think
he should just say, okay.
I think Tony probably went, oh, shit, that's actually a really good way to take this. Can I throw another little wrinkle into that?
Uh-huh.
And again, I still think it's going to end up being the snake in the grass MJF. I'm still a little more in that realm. However, I'm pretty sure the 90-day no compete clause for another certain member of the Hurt crew.
He's never going there. He's never going there.
You don't think he will?
They have bad blood.
Oh, but wait, what happened?
Because of his wife. His wife worked
there.
Big Swole.
Oh,
yeah.
I heard everything got squashed at the end. That everything was.
I don't think that. I don't think that was the thing. I think like they left amicably enough, but I don't think they left on good terms.
Let's remember though, at the end of the day, this talks.
I've been saying I'd like to see another. I'd like to see another guy that has a connection to them go into the Hurt Syndicate, because it's someone that you wouldn't think of, because you automatically assume that the other members of the Hurt business or the other people that have been associated with them, the Ricochets, the Cedric Alexanders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this, especially since he's back in great shape. What if Charlie Haas gets recruited into the Hurt Syndicate?
Is he in great shape now? Last time I saw him
shape.
as a gym teacher, he looked like he was.
I saw a picture of him. I saw a picture of him last week, and he looks massive again.
Good,
great. IBN, if he can get into the ring crew, I always have love for Charlie Haas. We worked with him back in the day. Feels like 100 years ago.
Well, here's what I'm saying with MJF. What if MJF does eventually start his own crew? Could you see a Charlie Haas and maybe even a Cedric Alexander being that? Oh, you wouldn't expect Cedric. You would think he's joining with, if he did sign. Would that be something that could be quite a little interesting?
I think it would be a nice wrinkle. I think it'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm. If they do it right. Again, they have to do it right. But
I think with MJF, he starts his own thing. You need real lackeys for him, for his story, for who he is as a wrestler, as a personality. I don't like Charlie Haas as a lackey, as like a yes man. Like, he was really good with Angle, not as a lackey, but as a pure athlete and a fantastic wrestler, and that was the role he filled there. Where MJF is going to need bootlickers, and that's not what. So I think that's
not Cedric or Charlie.
Yeah,
makes sense.
So I think that's where I'd put that in that mind. But let's move on from this crew. I'm actually going to come back to this a little bit later, particularly with the Hurt Syndicate, because I have some ideas on where they're going to go next. But we'll move on to match number three. There were only three. At this point in time, we have Mercedes Moné versus Julia Hart for the Women's Owen Cup Tournament quarterfinal match. That's a mouthful in its own right. I will say, I absolutely love Julia Hart. I'm so happy she's back. I think she has so much talent and she's so young. That will continue through. I was less than impressed with Mercedes Moné in this match. A couple of missed spots. She's fine. I feel like she's another one that has kind of a higher bar where you just expect more out of her based on everything that she's done in her past, and that if anything short of perfection, she takes shots similar to Will Ospreay at this point. Slim, I'm going to kick this one over to you. What were your thoughts on this match?
All right, I'm going to keep it very short, sweet, to the point. Number one, Julia Hart. Don't know if it came across on TV. Massive, massive cheers. Definitely.
That did come across, actually.
She definitely has that it factor that you're looking for, and she's very young and still learning. Mercedes, good talent. She's really good. I love Mercedes Moné. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I know she divorced her husband. If I wasn't a married man and happily married man, I would love to marry Mercedes Moné. That being said, she slipped at one point and fans really cursed, were literally cursing her out and all, and I didn't understand it. Because
you were in Philadelphia.
Philly fans. I'll give it to that one.
But it would have happened anywhere else, not just in Philly. And I don't understand. It was a simple slip. It wasn't. It was when she was going up to do that corner spot, and she quickly changed course. And it wasn't like she went, oh, I've seen wrestlers literally freeze and go, I don't know what to do. She quickly adjusted. She slipped. Oh my God. Whoop-de-doo, it happens. I've seen there were guys who slipped at times too.
I think my bigger critique other than that for Mercedes Moné, and I think this is just in the body of work, is she has solid matches every single night. But when we were talking earlier about everyone trying to steal the show, I don't know if she ever has that match that feels like she's trying to steal the show. This one was another solid match, misstep here and there. Everyone has that from time to time. But I think that you just expect so much from her, and she's gotten better since she started. I remember the beginning when she got to AEW, it was a little bit of a rough start, and she's definitely hit a stride. But the way the title's on her, she's super protected. It feels a little forced sometimes. And Steven, I want to kick that to you. Am I off? Am I way off base?
No, I definitely do think that Mercedes is a little protected, and Slim and I were having this conversation before we came on, where it definitely feels like Mercedes, who has so openly challenged what was happening in WWE and for lack of a better term, bashed that company, has not changed anything that she's done since leaving the company. So she's still Sasha Banks. She's just Mercedes Moné. So I'm a big believer that if you were that mad about what they were doing over there, you would have gone out of your way to change everything. I've seen a lot of wrestlers do that, where they didn't like what was going on in said place. When they got out of said place, they went in a completely different direction with their character because they felt like, well, that was dumb, so I'm going to try to do what I think is cool. I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm just saying that she hasn't done much to change my mind on that one, at least. The other one is, I agree with you guys on Julia Hart. I think she is massively talented and she has it. Now, where I'm not sure if it qualifies as a wrestler or just in a managerial stance, and I think she can. This before. And I think, and here's the thing: is she is also young. She's had a few major injuries already with being as young as she is, though. Torn labrum,
including from her cheerleading days too.
From cheerleading, but she was out for a year because of she tore her labrum in her shoulder.
Okay,
that's what kept her out for the last 9 months or whatever it was. Here's the thing: because she's young, she's able to bounce back from it. Because she's young, I think there's a lot of room for her to grow talent in the ring. But also, if she was never in the ring again and all she did was latch on to Brody King and they did spooky stuff, I would completely understand that and I'd be cool with it. I don't think anyone would be mad about it. I think she'd have a very successful career.
I agree with that. Oh, and real quickly, can I just hit on Mercedes real and her the actual match? My biggest gripe was they tried to do too much early as far as some of the stuff that neither one of them were really comfortable with. When they started the mat wrestling near the end of the match, all of a sudden you could see it really clicked. That's what they should have been doing more of throughout the match, and that was what frustrated me with that a little bit. Though I will say Julia Hart doing the Undertaker, spot there was pretty cool.
I did see that. That was cool. I will say for the match, my one critique is the end of the match, actually. And this is something that I have a gripe with against all companies, and it's becoming a little bit more prevalent. And that's someone getting hit with 4 or 5 moves that could be considered finishers just to get hit with a finisher.
Mm-hmm.
It's my note here was I don't understand why Julia Hart keeps getting up right now. Like she got dropped on like her head at one point and then got hit with a backcracker and then another backcracker and then got hit with with the finish. And she kept standing up afterwards. I'm like, it's
out of the story. It's part of the storyline conversation we were saying earlier. And
but do you also think that's some of her inexperience because she's so young?
No, I think
figuring those things out.
I will toss it to you this way. Maybe, but also Mercedes is the general in the match.
100%.
Well, you don't know, though, too. Mercedes may have been saying, no, stay down, and she might not have been. I mean, you don't know.
Again, I don't know what was happening in the match. We weren't in the ring, but right. That should have been one of those things like, you need to stay down for this. Like, I need to pick you up for it. Or realistically, after like the first big move, it should have been over.
That's why I was curious if it was like the nuances of her kind of because she's still so inexperienced, and she's still learning those nuances of saying, and maybe with more experience, that would be something where she realizes, again, and says in the back, no,
she's young. I think she's 23.
Yeah, she's only like maybe 24 at most. I mean,
I don't even think she's that old because she turned 21 in AEW, so I think she's like 23.
This keeps surrounding Julia Hart. This goes back to the producer conversation earlier. Mercedes Moné of the ring general who happens to be running the match. Julia Hart shouldn't be running this match. Moné's champion. So in my mind, there's multiple ways that you can look at it in that vein of things, but it's all about sticking the landing and not always having to make everyone feel like they're invincible. This is where it pulls you out of the match. You got hit with 4 finishers. Why are we on the 4th chapter of this ending? Let's end it and move on. Let's stick a better end here. I will talk out of both sides of my mouth because later because I think there's an area where Steven and I am going to disagree. But every time I say that, we end up agreeing. But like that's where you just kind of have a stronger finish to a match. I'm sure that in this case they were in the back talking through this ending and like, Julia, you look great. You're going to get up from 4 finishers, and it takes me 4 finishers to get you down. But it's unnecessary. It just kind of prolongs it.
Well, that's why I think Steve and I were talking earlier about how much better it would be for Mercedes. Scrap the finishers or like the big power moves like that, and submission. You should be doing what was the bank statement, whatever she's calling it out.
Bank statement, the crossface.
Yeah, that should be her finisher. Period. End of story. Like that would be tap out the person with that finisher because there's so much that could be done from that finisher.
And we said before we came on, every finish to this show was a pinfall. Mm-hmm. Every finish.
Because no one wants to tap out. But before we move on for this, I have to do one thing real fast. CEO. We did.
I was doing my CEO. I was chanting CEO. I'm not going to lie.
Well, you know how you know how to do that? Because it's in the song.
Because they tell you.
They tell you.
Hold on. You got to do the. Hold on. How does she do the thing with her?
I'm Caucasian. I don't know how.
I'm not. So quickly,
my wife's not down here to look at me. She would be rolling her eyes right now at me.
Get a strong side eye for that one.
Exactly.
Next, we have the Death Riders of Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta. Hometown Boy didn't get the hometown reception in this one with Yuta. Nope. Versus Rated FTR with Cope, Cash.
Or could you say he did get the hometown welcome? with the
Well,
fucking
Philly-
Cuba chance.
Philly loves their own. They really do.
In a way, it was
and
kind of our way of telling them. It was our way of telling them we love them.
Yeah, like,
he still got
welcome
the heat
back.
he was looking for. Hey, welcome back. Now, never.
I don't know if the camera
Yeah.
was on him when it was happening.
Again,
He
to
was
go
in the
back to my
side,
running
he
gag
was
about
like
Wheeler
this.
Yuta, I think the entire crowd was just mad because he couldn't fix their computer.
The storyline going into this one obviously was the butting heads of Dax and Cope, the kind of how they were going to work together. The trios match, the trios titles were on the line for this match. Steven, what's your big takeaway here?
I think the best part of it was the end.
Hold on, don't
I
get there. We'll save that for a minute.
The match itself was good. I think maybe I'm jaded. I'll say that. I'll say it myself. I might be a little bitter with anything that is in the Moxley vortex at this point. Anything
There's too
that
many
is
vortexes.
all right,
Vortex
fine. That
9?
is anything that is Moxley adjacent at this point is kind of it sours a little bit to me. And I love Claudio and I love Pac. I think that Pac for the last basically 10 years has been grossly misused by every company.
Correct.
And to the point where in this scenario, yeah, I thought Pac was going to win. I thought they were going to win titles. But if you put Pac into a singles match, I just automatically assume he's going to lose because he never wins.
That's what he's there for.
He's
Slim,
there to make everyone else have a great match and then lose.
Before we get to the end here, what were your takeaway? What do you think of this match?
I'll just say it nice. I'll say it like this: 6 very good workers. You knew it was going to be a good match, and it was a good match. It was. I mean, if you were disappointed in that match overall, then I don't know what I could tell you. It was a good match. Did they move the story along? I mean, yes. Based on the ending, they did what they needed to do with that, which I kind of liked that they were teasing more that it was going to be not just Cope having an issue with Dax, but also kind of the struggle in there with Cash getting pulled in. And then based on what happened, I kind of liked the way they went with that because it really had you questioning. Can I say it? No, I know you wanted me to wait. No,
so that's the big transition for me here. Like that's the big storyline move. I absolutely hate the way that FTR has been handled for the last couple weeks, months, whatever. Ever since they just kind of got punked by the Elite is really where I think they just completely wasted FTR, who I think might be the best tag team in the world right now. And this was the big rectify for it. I'm gonna go to Steve real quick, because I know he was dying to jump into this. So Steve, tell me about the ending. How did this make this match so much better?
I think the payoff is the ending for this, and I think that they've been teasing it. I think the only issue with this part of the segment is the fact that it wasn't a real shock. Like I kind of knew that they weren't going to split FTR up. And I also kind of going into this figured that the end of this was going to be, they're just going to turn on Edge, on Adam Edgeland.
I disagree. I really thought there was an actual legitimate chance that they could split them up. They teased it in a way that really gave you that aspect of you weren't sure of if that was going to happen. I really thought that.
I will say this, them going heel, I think is refreshing.
Yes.
I think
I'm so up for it.
I think them being vicious
they do some of
heels.
the best heel work. Like they really
do.
They're awesome in the heels.
And I think it also works in the aspect of the Hurt Syndicate are getting cheered so much.
That's where I was going with that one as well.
Felt like, like kind of like the double flip in a lot of ways happening.
The Hurt Syndicate needs a legitimate threat. The Learning Tree is not a legitimate threat. And so when you look at Cash and Dax coming in and doing their thing, coming for the tag team titles again, like there's very few people that you can put next to Lashley and Benjamin and think that they're going to walk away with any kind of heat. And these two guys can do it. But even more so, does this cross on Cope lead to something a little more awesome?
I was just about to ask you guys that. I was saying, will we need to be taking out our cameras for some flash photography?
Huh?
I think so. For 7 seconds.
For 7 seconds, yes. That was actually, when that happened, that was the thing. I was waiting to see if Christian showed up on the show that night, because that was in my mind. And the way that they wrote Cope off, doing the concerto, just kind of felt like there was some, little breadcrumbs there, I guess, wherever you want to say it.
Awesome
I
breadcrumbs.
think it could be very Let me ask you this. I know
if they come out in giant sunglasses, I will be so happy.
Part of me is like, is it 20 years too late? But part of me is like, I kind of like when DX would get back together after, and it was a similar thing, even though in a lot of ways, yes, it ran its course, but it still kind of sparked that joy in me as seeing it. Is that going to be the similar kind of aspect?
What I'm afraid of is the normal AEW move of Cage is here. He's friends with Edge again. Everything's good. Everything's awesome.
I hope they take a page out of DX's book of how they teased that over a long period of time, where you still thought that Triple H and Shawn were at odds.
Yeah, and I think that's the right move here. That's why the concerto was the right move in this, because now Cope will take a little bit of a powder. He can't come back on Wednesday. Like you have to give him a couple seconds, and then you allow Cage to kind of transition. He's worked so hard to be one of, if not the most hated person in AEW.
He might be the most hated. And he's done a really good job of that.
In the best way possible. Not a Logan Paul most hated because everyone just thinks it's guts.
Or like a Dom most hated.
No, that's different. Dom earned it. And
Dom has earned
Dom was just
Dom, Don Callis, and Christian, really, to me, feel like the three biggest that get the heat.
Yeah. Like those guys, like they earned the heat. They convinced people that it was fun to boo them. Everyone just hates Logan Paul. Like that's just the way that works at this point.
Because you should.
Yeah, and as far as the tag title is concerned, do you want to see a long program between the two, where maybe they chase the titles a little bit, a switch happens? Do you want to see them kind of do an 80s? Like I'm thinking of.
I could see that. I could see it being like a Horseman versus like a Roadies type situation. Like
who was the Rockers? The Rockers were chasing in the 80s in the AWA. They were chasing a champ for like literally an entire year.
Buddy Rose and I forget. It was someone in Buddy Rose though.
But that kind of thing, like, do you want to see that kind of a thing where you see the chase happening? Maybe the heels win it, and then you see the baby faces being. I think
if FTR and Hurt Syndicate are going to go back and forth for a few months, even 5-6 months, I think it involves some title changes.
It definitely has to have at least a couple title changes, but I would love to see them do something for a longer term storyline of 6 months, a year. I know that sounds like a lot, especially at their ages, but I feel like as long as everybody's healthy and doing good, the matches, and then you add in some different stipulations. The matches that could be had from that, and the promos that could be had from that would just be so much fun.
I don't think you guys are having the same conversation right now, Steven. I think that you're talking about. You said the Hurt Syndicate.
I'm talking about the Hurt Syndicate and FTR.
Oh, you are talking. So, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant FTR. Then I'm not having.
No. I'm thinking to me feels like it's going to be a little more of a one-off.
I think it's
get back together, but as far as them and FTR, I feel like that's more of a one-off.
The purpose of the FTR Hurt Syndicate program is going to be shorter to get the titles off them, because you need someone legit to take that off of Bobby Lashley so he can go on and do bigger and better things.
Yeah, that is possible too.
Same thing with Benjamin. Maybe he gets himself another tag team partner. Maybe he's in a lower tier title conversation or some sort of.
He starts going after the newly formed Intercontinental title.
Sure. When they merge that, like
the International and the Continental title.
Do you think they're gonna merge those titles ultimately?
Yes, they absolutely are, and form the never heard of Intercontinental title.
Yes, for anything.
Well, they can't actually call it that. They cannot call it Intercontinental because that would be. I guarantee you, WWE has that copyright.
That's not true. That's not true.
Really?
I'll give it to you this way. There was an IWGP Intercontinental title.
the intra-continental.
And
It's completely different.
and New Japan is still considered a form of competition to WWE. So you can't say that they're not doing that.
But I think that to get back to that point, I think that this is how you get the titles off them was with FTR, and then you get a maybe not long but a medium length clinic between Cope and Cage versus FTR, and
So
that's where
CNC versus FTR.
Yes, I think it's just Edge and Christian. That's all anyone's going to say. But I think that's where that ends up going towards, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I love the way this one ended. Leading into what I think is the match of the night is Timeless Toni Storm versus Megan Bain for the AEW World Championship. I don't know where I'm at this point in time. I think I'm going to go to Slim first. Slim, what'd you think about this match?
So, for me, I enjoy Toni Storm. Like to me, I love watching Toni Storm. I can't, like I said, I've told you more, I will goo gaga, ooze over how just awesome she is in the ring, how awesome she is on the mic, the story she tells, and she makes me believe it. And again, I was a little worried. Megan Bain, a bigger opponent, a little more that physical aspect, but I thought they did it the right way. Megan Bain is showing that strength, is showing off that ability. And then ultimately at the end, though, Timeless Toni Storm with the win. I thought they did that very well. And it just shows the talent of her. And again, this goes back to Ospreay aspects as well, of making Megan Bain, even in a losing effort, look really good and really strong.
Yeah, I agree. The Wiley veteran getting that kind of roll up, that sneak win was solid here. Steven, what's your takeaways here?
I will never be mad about a Timeless Toni Storm match. I think she is amazing. I think she is everything right in the world of pro wrestling right now.
She is.
I think Megan Bain is getting pushed in just the right way currently. I don't mind her not winning the match here. I think she still looks strong at the end of it. I think it depends. Again, I think the follow-up to this match is going to be very important.
Let me ask you this. What do you want to see? What do you want to see her next? I'm trying to. That was actually really funny in the chat there with that.
Sorry,
I am
not myself.
I know.
I broke myself here. I don't usually do that. I do that every so often to break other people.
No, that was
I caught myself too.
I couldn't help but want to laugh. Perfectly placed. But let me ask you guys real quick. What is the next step for Megan Bain then? I know what Timeless Toni Storm's next step is, but what do you do with Megan Bain? How do you get her to that next level?
I think that this is a monster move, right? I think she's going to blow through some competition. So I think you'll see a couple rookie-esque people. I think you'll see a couple like established stars that she just kind of puts down. I'd be worried of her kind of burying someone that we want to see move forward, but that's where I think that they're building this up. And this is where I thought that Steven and I might disagree. Steven, what'd you think about the kick out at 1 after a Storm's End?
So I wasn't a fan of it, but I wasn't a fan for a bigger reason, just because there were a lot of pile drivers tonight. There were a lot of pile drivers, and it's a little like I said, it's a little less on the term of she kicked out of that one. It was the amount of pile drivers that got kicked out or used. Up until that match, there's 4 pile drivers.
I think that there's a difference between a pile driver and the Storm's End. The Storm's End is a very protected match and a move, and I know like Mariah May recently has kicked out of it, but without that, typically you don't kick out of the Storm's End. Kicking out at 1, I thought was a statement. And I actually really dug the way that they did it. So this is where I thought we'd disagree, and we kind of do. You're a little bit more waffly than I thought you were going to be. But because like that's how you use these moves. I absolutely hate it when people kick out of finishers constantly because they're not really that. The crossroads is the most worthless move in all of wrestling because you know that if you don't get hit with 3 of them in a row, you're kicking out.
And the spear. The spear is another one. I feel like everybody's always kicking out of a spear.
But no one's ever kicked out of the gore. And so and that's kind of the point of this where there's like even Spike double team pile drivers where people will kick out, which I think you shouldn't ever do because you should get traction. But the Storm End is a protected move. Her kicking out at 1, not even just kicking out of the move, but kicking out at 1 was like, oh my, here we go.
And Tony's face when it happened is gold.
Yes. And that's where her character work is so phenomenal because that face. Is it safe to say that just that face told a million words?
I agree. To piggyback on your point for what Megan Bain does next, Showtime, I think she absolutely puts Penelope Ford in traction at some point soon. Sure. I think this is going to be a point where that friendship, that partnership is going to dissolve, and part of the dissolution of it is to make Megan Bain look even more like a despicable monster that doesn't care about anyone and is the most powerful person in that division, and just put her like out for another 2 years, basically.
There is with that, I agree with you on that front, but there is a number of women on this roster that she can actually absolutely run through.
I just think Penelope Ford might be the start of it. Like that's going to be the start, and then it's going to be like 4 or 5 other ones that she just runs through.
Yeah, and like it just worries me. Like, does Purrazzo get thrown in here and just kind of chewed up?
Thunder Rosa gets thrown back in here and gets chewed up.
Thunder Rosa was the one I didn't want because I hate the way that they're handling Thunder Rosa right now. I feel like she's like gone down to like jobber territory at this point in time.
She's very much like, even her character is just, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. We're good. So I think that there's a few of those names that kind of pop up where you can kind of run through them, as well as others that kind of hit here. I could see her. This could be like a real threat for Monet to take the title off her there. I don't think
I was thinking something like that too. Maybe you'd start out with the TBS title first.
I think I'm still in the camp that it's going to be Willow. I feel like that's like everyone. I feel like everyone agreed that that's who's going to win this title a year ago. But like, is that really where we end up? So there's a few.
I think it depends on what happens with this Owen Cup tournament. Honestly, if Mercedes ends up winning the Owen Cup and challenging Toni Storm, I kind of think Mercedes ends up winning the world title. And then I could see them forcing her to vacate the TBS title, in which case Megan Bain, and I could see it being Megan Bain and Willow at the end of a TBS title tournament.
I don't want to see Monet beat Storm.
I don't either, but I'm just
not interested in that at all.
I'm talking. I'm just saying it's not far-fetched.
No, it's not far-fetched. I just don't want to see that.
I want to keep those better directions to take it than that.
I think there's absolutely better directions. I'm just saying that this is where I think they'll end up going.
They've done a really good job keeping those two as far away from each other. And I want that match to happen in like 2 years, where it's like, oh my god, they've been in the same company for this long, and they've never been in the ring together.
I like that a lot.
Like that's the kind of thing, and they've already kind of set it up, and have that as like not a once in a lifetime type match, but it's like, this has never happened. This is a monumental. This is our 2 most successful women's wrestlers of all times, of the last 5 years, whatever the storyline that you have, and continue them on their own dominant sides of things until we get to that spot. So that's just my 2 cents there. That's what I'd rather see than Monet getting a win here because of the Owen Hart Cup.
What's up, Legion? That was the end of part 1 of our AEW Dynasty review. Please stay tuned and check out our other video, AEW Dynasty Review Part 2.